Pleiades Cluster, 2175 AD, 442.2 light-years from Earth. Automated Border Outpost 1D25. Ray Buncombe barely resisted the urge to punch the smug exosuit in front of him as he continued to listen to the occupant of the biomechanical construct lecture him like he was a barely sapient child. He regained his composure, concentrating on maintaining the bland smile on his face, though his thoughts were consumed with worry about the potential failure of the discussion he was engaged in. As the official representative of the Republic to the malit domain, Ray had spent many years carefully cultivating this relationship. Despite the intransigent nature of the many malit representatives he had dealt with over the years, he had slowly earned their grudging respect and managed to get them to engage with him in matters they typically refused to consider with the younger species. He was responsible for the technological transfers they finally agreed to after he had spent over a year annoying them about it. He was rightfully proud of getting them to the point where they gave him what he wanted just to shut him up. But now he did not have the luxury of time to do the same thing. The Commonwealth Liberation Fleet was mere hours away from launching their assault on the Omnian system, and he needed to get the malit to act fast. Fat chance, he thought to himself as he waited for the long-winded lecture to finally be over. The malit did not do anything in haste. They pondered, they ruminated, and they took forever to reach consensus and finally decide on an issue, even for simple things like changing a delivery date for trading ships coming to one of their automated border posts. It was maddening to deal with their lack of concern for doing things in a timely manner. I suppose that's natural when you live for hundreds of years and view things in the scope of centuries and millennia, he thought, preparing himself for his rebuttal to their denial of his request to intervene. The exosuit speakers finally stopped speaking, and Ray started slowly counting to 10 in his head to make sure the malit was finally done. Speaking out of turn or interrupting them was a grave insult, and would immediately end the session. He learned that lesson the hard way when he first made that mistake, and they punished him by refusing any overtures from him for 8 months. It was only when he informed them that he was being replaced by another representative that they resumed speaking with him, informing him that they would rather not go through the trouble of properly training his replacement. When he had counted to 10 and was sure that it was in fact his turn to speak, he addressed the malit exosuit in front of him. "Honored Elder, I hear your words and know the wisdom contained within them. I thank you for enlightening me, and I wish to ask that you please consider my thoughts." He paused, silently counting to 3 before continuing. The malit preferred short, concise bursts of speech, and it had taken him a while to adjust his speaking style and cadence to accommodate them. Article 3, subsection 1A clearly outlines the repercussions for deploying fusion weapons with the intent of using them against other species. The Omnians are in violation. The malit responded after the appropriate length of time to ensure that the human had finished speaking. This is an internal matter not subject to sanctions by the malit domain. After the appropriate interval, Ray responded, growing impatient. It matters not if this is an internal issue. When the insectoids invaded the Commonwealth, they did not resort to using them in self-defense. Though they were entirely within their rights to do so, they did not use them, believing that it would be in violation of the Treaty of Sirius. The malit responded almost immediately, surprising him with such a rapid reply. "Your statement has no bearing. This is an internal matter and not subject to sanctions by the malit domain." Still flustered by the rapid response of the malit, Ray waited for the appropriate duration and pressed his point. "Yes, it does. Believing that violating the treaty would trigger sanctions from the malit domain led the Commonwealth to not deploy them against the swarms, and almost 700 billion souls were eradicated by the insectoids as a result. Now the Commonwealth has descended into a civil war because of the treaty. You are responsible." After twice the usual interval of time had passed, the malit responded, its synthesized voice replaced by its real, unfiltered voice. Ray winced as the shrill, rapid sounds pierced his ears, causing immense pain as he doubled over. The malit finally stopped screeching, and his translator put words to the terrible sounds. "How dare you accuse us? We are not responsible for the actions of children such as you. We made the treaty to protect you from your own self-destructive tendencies, and you insult us by claiming that we are at fault. This is why we have chosen to isolate ourselves from immature and incompetent species such as yours." Ray straightened himself back up, his hands trembling from the rage he was feeling as he stared at the black lens of the recording sensors that transmitted the outside world to the malit within. "When the insectoids invaded multiple times, you did nothing. When they swarmed and murdered over 100 billion souls during the first wave, you did nothing. And when they came for the Alayani, you were not there. We were. When they wiped out the Virni, you were not there." He started to pause to give the Mayolit a chance to respond before changing his mind. "Screw this. I am tired of their arrogant bullshit," he thought as he continued speaking. "And when they went to the Jelini system to exterminate them, they did not find you there. They found us, and our entire fleet sacrificed itself to save them because it was the right thing to do. For all your vaunted power and wisdom and the exalted status you have conferred upon yourselves over us, younger species, your failure to act has shown us that you are not worthy of the honor and respect that you demand." Ray spun around and started walking quickly towards the exit, which was 10 meters away. He was no longer kissing their asses, and he did not care anymore. He got to within 3 meters of the open exit when the recessed door silently slid shut. He turned around and glared at the malit, raising his voice so that he could be heard over the distance between them. "You will open this door. Need I remind you that I am an accredited diplomatic official of the Republic of Humanity, and that detaining me against my will is a hostile act?" The malit did not respond right away, and after a few moments it started walking towards him. The exosuit legs whirred as the malit came closer, the wide bases of the suit legs clanging as they lifted and fell onto the hard granite floor. Ray forced himself to remain still, maintaining a proud bearing that belied the uncertainty he felt as the 5-meter-tall exosuit continued toward him. The malit stopped 1 meter from his position, looming over him as the lenses of its sensors focused on him. It started speaking again with its own voice, though it mercifully lowered the speaker volume this time to avoid hurting his auditory organs again. He listened as the malit continued to stridently vocalize, and he grasped his translator, holding down the side button to stop it from immediately translating until the malit finished speaking. It finally stopped, and he waited for the customary 10 seconds to pass before he double-tapped the button on the translator to let it perform its function. "We were great explorers when your kind had yet to learn how to speak. We were among the first ones, one of the great species that claimed dominion over this area of space. We observed the barely sentient ancestors of your species and others for millennia, like the deities of the skies they worshipped. We have seen species rise and fall. We have seen empires grow and decay. We have seen great wars and pestilence lay waste to the stars and all those who inhabited them. We watched as our allies and friends died by the decatrillion, powerless to save or help them. Nature had selected them for extinction, and who were we to try to deny the natural order of things?" The translator paused momentarily, mimicking the pauses of the malit when it spoke before. "The insectoids are such a force, implacable like the nature that created them. There is no appeasement, no common ground. They will continue inexorably, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. You might as well ask the planets to stop rotating or the stars themselves to refrain from undergoing nuclear fusion." There was another pause, and the translator resumed its dictation. "They are a part of the natural order of things. We do not interfere, and because we know our place, we remain, and we will continue to remain long after all the great works you wrought have returned to the very dust from whence they sprang." Ray had been listening silently, feeling the pain and sorrow of the malit's words, even though the translator was not capable of conveying the emotion behind them. He did not respond and turned his gaze to the floor, utterly defeated. He had failed to secure their intervention, and now their allies were going to invade a system armed to the teeth with salted fusion weapons. The malit started speaking again, and Ray barely paid attention as he continued to stare at the glossy black triangular tiles on the floor. After another burst of speech, the malit finished speaking, and he double-tapped the button to listen to what would surely be another lecture. My human child, think not that we are so callous as to not care for what happens to you and the others. We seeded the stars with null drives for you to find so that we would not have to be alone anymore. And we waited patiently for over 100,000 years for our children to join us. Every time one of the young ones left their solar systems, we rejoiced and watched with pride as they took their first foray into the unknown. We felt the greatest joy when your species finally made it through the great filter and clawed its way back from extinction. Your contrasts are unique and continue to confound us to this day. Another pause, and Ray was now looking at the sensors of the exosuit, surprised at what the malit was saying. You are capable of equal measures of love, hate, beauty, ugliness, creation, and destruction. You have chosen to emphasize the better aspects of your duality, and we are proud of what you have become. When you fought and died for the Eleani, our pride was immeasurable. When you did it again to save the Gelini, it was then that we truly knew that one day you might take your rightful place next to us as enlightened ones if you could only survive the coming trials that await your species. There was another longer pause before the translator resumed. This is why we gave you technology to help you when we refused to do so for the others. This is as far as we are willing to go, and in this matter we decline to interfere. This is the order of things, and we fervently hope that your species has been selected for survival. Farewell, human. The translator beeped, indicating that it was finished. Ray stood silently as the malit waited until what it had to say was communicated by the device, and then it turned away from him, heading back towards the center of the chamber. Ray turned around and saw that the exit he had headed for before was now open. He walked towards it and had just passed the threshold when he realized that the malit was wrong about one thing. The insectoids were not a force of nature. The proof was that the Hive Mother was allied with the Republic. He spun back around and re-entered the chamber, walking fast as his excitement grew, having found a flaw in their logic. "Honored Elder," he called out, rapidly closing the distance between them until he was once again 2 meters from the exosuit. This was a serious breach of decorum, and he did not care one bit. He had something to show the malit, and he was damn well going to prove them wrong and force them to act. The malit started shrieking again, and this time he could clearly discern the emotion behind it as the shrill vocalizations penetrated his ears. It caused a weird sensation, making him feel a little faint as his head felt like it was getting both smaller and larger at the same time. It was pissed at him, and he did not need the translator to pick up on that. He reached up and pressed the side button 3 times in rapid succession, turning it off. He then activated his wrist pad, quickly scrolling through its files until he found what he was looking for as the malit continued to stridently vocalize while pointing towards the exit. He ignored it and took off the wrist pad, placing it on the floor between them and activating the holo system. The program activated, and a 3D representation of the first contact between the Rebel Queen and the Republic shimmered into view. The AI bandit and the Rebel Queen were signing to each other in Eliani Sign Language, and President Lopez could be seen clearly communicating with the two of them. The malit stopped shrieking, and Ray saw the lenses of the suit sensors look away from him and towards the hologram, focusing on it. It continued to watch the hologram as it played the entire conversation, and when the program finished, he bent down and quickly activated another file. This one was a compilation of holo videos showing humans and their androids helping the Rebel Queen build her hive on the Republic world, and worker drones assisting Republic scientists in dismantling the hive ship and cruiser for study. The malit was silent while the entire 20-minute video played, and when the program was finished, it turned towards him and spoke to him in the synthesized voice it normally used. This time, its words were in Republic Standard. "Human, this is a fabrication. I pity you for thinking that you can fool us with such nonsense. I fear that your mind has drifted from reality if you think we will believe that a queen has joined forces with another species. Such things are not possible." Ray bent back down, picked up the wrist pad, and stood up, offering it to the malit. Take this and analyze it. You will find other files that show the same truth, and if you still don't believe me, then send a ship to that world and see for yourself that there is a hive in Republic space. The malit did not move at first, and his arm started to tremble slightly from extending the wrist pad. Finally, the malit suit reached out a 3-fingered hand and took the device from him before speaking again. You will wait here while we verify the contents. Refreshments will be brought for you, and we will provide waste processing facilities for your use. An enclosed conical structure silently appeared from the floor.